Well, I think one of the biggest obstacles we faced is an attitude. That it's somebody else's problem to fix, that there's something wrong with the child. I think many times when children are successful in school, the first thing that people say is, well, well, he's not doing this or she's not doing that. Well, do we look in the mirror and say, what is it that we have to do? What changes or modifications have we made in our practice to see if there are things that we can do and changes in our practice that we can make to improve the situation? Consider this. We talk about crises in America. This would be a crisis. This would be a crisis. There are approximately, as you can see, 28,500 commercial airline flights every day in the United States. If 99% of them in a year landed safely, 99% success rate, wouldn't you kill for 99% success rate on your state test scores? I mean, you would be ecstatic. But if that was the case in the airline industry, that means over 104,000 flights would crash every year. That would be catastrophic. This country would not tolerate that, would they? We would not tolerate that. People would not get on airplanes. The industry would be in disarray. But we tolerate much higher percentages of that, children leaving school every day. It happens every single day. I was just in a district that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. I'm not going to mention the district. I don't do that. But where I was dealing with some elementary school principals, administrators, and teachers, and we were talking about the kids who had dropped out. And here's one of the challenges. They look at it as a number. They look at it as a number. There's a person associated with every number. I was doing an opening keynote, not this August, but last August in a medium-sized school division, and I got the names ahead of time of every child who had dropped out of school in that school district. And I didn't have a title slide like I had here. I was in an audience of, I don't know, a few thousand people, and I put the names up of all those children on the slide, on the opening slide, and I didn't say a word. Because silence is very uncomfortable, right? I mean, if I got up here to the mic and I didn't say anything for like 5 minutes, you folks would go, what the heck's going on here? Silence is uncomfortable. I didn't say a word. So what happened? People started talking amongst themselves. Then pretty soon I said, what do you think these names represent? And somebody raised their hand and said, well, I know, a lot of those kids didn't do very well. I said, okay, all right. Then finally somebody said, I think those kids might be dropouts. I said, you're absolutely right. That's the list of all the children who dropped out of your school district last year. And the most powerful statement said after that was by a third-grade teacher who raised her hand and said, she named one of the students on the list and said, I had that young man in third grade, and I wonder if there was something different I could have done to have a different outcome for that child. That's what's powerful. See, the fact that high school people are here, the dropout problem, the child starts dropping out at conception. I mean, I really mean that. Poor prenatal care. What's the impact of poor prenatal care? What's the impact of what happens with a child before you even get them? I was in New Hampshire a couple weeks ago, and in New Hampshire, we're looking at state standards. The state standards for kindergarten assume that a child can do certain things before they come to kindergarten. The moment they walk in the door of kindergarten, they're supposed to know the alphabet. They're supposed to be able to count to 10, recognize numbers, letters, so on. How many kids can't do that? We already set the kid up for failure. Marty sent to me a document a couple weeks ago. We were talking, I did an interview for some radio talk show. I don't remember what it was, but we were looking at some research out of Johns Hopkins University on the impact of summer on children and the cumulative impact on summer and how that negatively impacts us. Because we make pretty good gains with all kids. If they come to school and we get them during the school year. But summer happens, weekends happen, vacations happen. See, we got to make this a front burner item. And the more we talk about it, the more we're able to change, get people to think about changing their behaviors. There's a great book called The Oz Principle. Anybody read it? Has anybody read it? I think it's a fabulous book. It talks about individual and organizational accountability. And you don't need to read the book because I'm going to show you this graphic here, and that really covers the whole book. So I just saved you $25. But do we operate above the line or below the line? And school divisions that I've worked with, and I've shared this graphic with them, what we've done is they use this with kids. They use this with their peers. Above the line means that I see that we have a challenge. I own it. There's something we can do about it. We're going to come up with a plan to solve it, and then we actually enact the plan. We do something about it. Now, below the line thinking is the blame game. It's somebody else's fault. We point fingers. Cover your own backside. You know, pretend like you don't know. Individuals and organizations that operate below the line don't move forward. When I gave the example from my time in Hartford, when I first gave them that 3x5 card, they were operating below the line. We had to create a paradigm shift. Organizations and individuals operate above the line get changed. Change occurs, positive things happen. Now let's face it, all of us have operated below the line sometimes in our lives. We all do. I have, I've made excuses for things. But if you're doing it all the time, what's the net result? Not very positive. Think about operating above the line. What are those challenges? How do we know they're challenges? Deal in reality. What did Harry Truman say? I never gave anyone hell. I just told them the truth and they thought it was hell. And there's a whole lot of truth to that. I think many organizations don't deal in reality and they don't uncover the true dynamics of their situation. When I came to Hartford, we had a classification of students that didn't appear anywhere, only in the mind of the previous principal. We had grades 9 through 12, but he had created a grade called 9R. What's 9R? Those are kids who didn't become 10th graders. Well, what they did is we tested in 10th grade. Kids would drop out. Kids would do credit recovery and all these other things. And some of them would actually skip 10th grade and become 11th graders. If you're never a 10th grader, you never took the test. That's pretty slick. Now, I exposed that. What do you think the first thing the superintendent said to me? Who else knows about this?